Greetings, my dear viewers. It is I, Drahon, and welcome back to Dungeons & Dragons Character Concept, where we take a look at, character concepts. The original intention of this video was to look at the different races in Dungeons & Dragons and see, using the lore of those races, what possible character combinations we can get for those races, using backgrounds and classes. And today we are looking at the Hadozee, known as the flying squirrels of apes in the Forgotten Realms, technically the Spelljammer setting, but the information I got was from the Forgotten Realms wiki, so yeah. Anyway, the Hadozee are rather interesting creatures. And, well, the first notable thing I want to go ahead and mention is that they have a liking to elves. In fact, according to the wiki, they love elves. They willingly work for elves on their Spelljammer ships. Hadozee themselves don't have the capacity to use Spelljammers, meaning that they don't cast spells, because that's how you use a Spelljammer, at least in the older editions. As of this video, the Spelljammer setting has not been released for 5th edition. So, yeah. The lore might change slightly if the Hadozee get featured in that book set. So, anyway, fun little fact is that the Hadozee are actually based off a creature of the same name from another RPG system, Star Frontiers. So there's that to consider. But what type of characters can we create using the Hadozee race? Well, for backgrounds, I would suggest typical ship-faring backgrounds, like the sailor, shipwright, pirate, even harbor folk. Another good one is the Far Traveler or the Outlander, since they are from the Spelljammer setting. It would make sense for them to have these type of backgrounds. Another odd one is the Mercenary Veteran. They do work with elves as sort of mercenaries. If they're not working with elves, they are still technically mercenaries. So, honestly, it makes sort of sense to use the Mercenary Veteran as a background. Though, more often than not, you're probably just using the Sailor, Shipwright, Pirate, or Harbor Folk. As far as classes go, like I mentioned, the Hadozee don't pilot Spelljammers themselves because they don't have the ability to, which translates into them not having spellcasting capabilities. So the most common classes that a Hadozee might have would be the Barbarian, the Fighter, the Monk, and the Rogue, the 4 martial subclasses. But let's go ahead and see what subclasses might work for our Hadozee characters. We're going to go ahead and start off with the Artificer, and this is more going off of the term Grease Monkey than it is going off of the lore of the Hadozee, because I didn't find any information on them using machinery, but since they do work on Spelljammers, I would argue that they do have the capacity of making repairs to the Spelljammers. So having an Artificer with the Battlesmith Specialist would make a little bit of sense. Moving on to Barbarian, we're going to go with the primal paths of the Beast, the Berserker, and the Totem Warrior as the most common Barbarian subclasses that you might use for a Hadozee. I do have one more primal path in here, and it's a little strange. The primal path of the Depths. This can be found in Runeterra Tides of Bilgewater, which, honestly, it's a fun little subclass. I actually used it in one of my character conversion builds, but it's still strange to see it with a Hadozee. This was more of a reference to another monkey creature, Demogorgon, the Prince of Demons. I just thought it would be a fun nod to the two-headed monkey with a tentacle for an arm. And one of the abilities of the Depths Barbarian is being able to grow an extra appendage, such as a tentacle. Moving on to the more obvious classes to use with your Hadozee is the Fighter. Now, we're going to go ahead and go over these last few: the Battle Master, the Brute, the Samurai, and the Scout. Two of them are Unearthed Arcana subclasses. I chose Brute because roughly the same reason I chose Barbarian, and that is because of the strength a lot of apes and monkeys are said to have. The Scout is for the fact that, well, they lived in jungle environments. It makes sense for them to have ties to nature. And the Scout is sort of a diet ranger. Both the Fighter subclass and the Rogue subclass have these ranger-like capabilities, even though they are not fully rangers. Now, the one strange subclass here is the Arcane Archer, and this would be strange if not for the fact that the Hadozee loved elves. They worked with elves, so it would make sense if the elves with the Arcane Archer archetype, because, like I've mentioned a couple of times, the Arcane Archer was originally created by elves, would either teach it to the Hadozee, or the Hadozee would simply learn from seeing these elves use those specialities. Moving on to Monk, this is more of the fact that monkeys, or apes rather, are more hand-to-hand combat focused. So having the monastic traditions based off of those capabilities, such as the open hand or the living weapon, makes sense. I put in Drunken Master in here because it also sort of focused on that hand-to-hand combat with a little bit of unpredictability that comes with fighting an ape. They kind of just flail their arms wildly, so you don't exactly know what is going on because there's no tactic. The final one here is the Astral Self, and I picked this one because I believe that the updated version of the Spelljammer series has you going through the astral plane. But I'm not positive, so this one could be scrapped if I am wrong. Moving on to the Rogue class. This one is probably the most obvious since they are ship-faring people. Using the Swashbuckler or the Scout subclasses would actually work really well here. The Assassin and the Thief also make very good secondary options if you don't want to go with a Scout or a Swashbuckler. Now, I have one more roguish archetype here, and that is the Inquisitive. This is more of a reference to a childhood book that I have read, or a series rather, Curious George, the curious little monkey, an ape, monkey, curious, inquisitive. I thought it was just funny to reference Curious George. Moving on to our next class. Now, this one is also going to be a little bit of surprise, and it's the Sorcerer. The reason why I chose a Sorcerer is the IRL mythological magical item, the monkey's paw. Able to make wishes come true with a bit of a twist. This is also a reference to a monkey character that another Dungeons & Dragons YouTuber has played with. You might recognize this character from the channel Dingo Doodles. Sips. And, well, Sips is a wild magic sorcerer as well. I just thought it was a funny reference. There was no intent on referencing Sips, but it was just a happy coincidence. I was mostly just referencing the monkey's paw. You make a wish, one of the fingers folds, wish comes true with some sort of evil twist on it. Going off of the monkey's paw still is the Warlock class, more specifically another wish-fulfilling creature that twists those wishes. The genie. More specifically, the Deo or the Djinn, because I think those two would fit the Hadozee a little bit more than either of the other two. The Ifriti, which is fire, and the Merid, which is water. Now, I could have also put in the Wizard class and went with the Blade Singer, since it's another Elven subclass, but I felt that an ape would not desire to learn wizardry. I think they would just be more Warlock or Sorcerer, and barely even that. So with that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and end the video here. I hope you have enjoyed. Until next time, this has been Drehan, and I am offline.